Hi, this is Steve with Thresher Media Group. Welcome to When You're Ready to Listen. This podcast is dedicated to exploring the truth about God, things you may not have understood, may not have been taught, or quite frankly, had a very hard time believing. And since our entire relationship with God rests on believing, it is important we learn how to separate the truth from the many lies and fictions that abound within the religion of Christianity. So when you're ready to listen, tune in and discover a pathway to freedom, encouragement, life, and hope. In our last podcast, we discussed Eliphaz's prophetic statements that apply to our life now and some of which apply to the millennial kingdom when Jesus rules and reigns on the earth. We were told that we will scoff at famine and violence and that we will not be afraid of wild beasts, which, as we learned, is a euphemism for demonic spirits. However, one of the most powerful statements was in Job 5:24. You will know that your tent or tabernacle is peace, for you will oversee your abode and not sin. With this idea of a tent or a tabernacle being a metaphor for our physical bodies, this was a promise that Yahweh Shalom, Yahweh who is peace, will abide in our bodies. And when he is in control, when he reigns as our Lord, we will not sin because he does not sin. In him, there now is no sin. This holds the key to managing our abode and not sinning. Living without sin is not a personal discipline. It's not about accountability, and it's not about trying really hard. Rather, we must be absolutely consumed in Yahweh so he can live his life without sin, without transgression, in and through our bodies. Let's pick back up in episode 24, Yahweh According to Job, Job chapter 5, verse 24 through 27, with the journey that he must take us on to get us to the place where he lives a sinless life through, in and through our bodies, where we will oversee our abode and not sin. In our last podcast, we ended reading a very powerful but difficult passage in 1 John. Let's read it again. Let's pick back up in 1 John chapter 3, verse 4 through 10. Everyone who is now practicing sin also now practices lawlessness. And sin now is lawlessness. You know that he was caused to appear in order that he might take away sins? And in him there now is no sin. No one who is now abiding in him now sins. No one who is now sinning has seen him or has known him. Little children, make sure no one is commanded to now deceive you. The one who is now practicing righteousness is now righteousness. Just as he is now righteous, the one who is now practicing sin is now of the devil, for the devil now sins from the beginning. The Son of God was caused to appear for this purpose, that he may loosen, dissolve, or break the works of the devil. No one who has been born or been caused to being born of God now practices sin, because his seed now abides in him. And he cannot now choose to now sin because he has been caused to have been born of God. By this, the children of God and the children of the devil are now obvious. Anyone who is not now practicing righteousness is now not of God, nor the one who is not now loving, agape, loving his brother. In him, there now is no sin. This holds the key to managing our abode or our bodies and not sinning. As I said before, we must be absolutely consumed in Yahweh so he can live his life without sin, without transgression, in and through our bodies. This is the only way we can now practice righteousness, for he is righteousness. And it is the only way we can love one another with God's agape love, for God is agape love. The journey. This text addresses everything about sin and sinning in the present tense, a reality now. And it readily uses the participle, which communicates that which is ongoing, continual, a lifestyle of sin, or in the alternative, a lifestyle of righteousness. Given that context, let's revisit the truth that no one is good except God alone. What most Christians do not realize, and this is a wildly unchristian concept, but here goes. Every time we are focused on not sinning, trying to live up to verses like 1 John chapter 3, verse 4 through 10, trying so very hard to be good like God and disciplining ourselves and holding ourselves accountable so we might be able to control what we do, the truth is we're practicing sinning. We are living a lifestyle of ongoing, continual sin. You see, we must never forget that there is only one who is good. There is only one who is without sin. And that's why the typical Christian approach of practicing personal discipline and accountability so we might be holy, while it might sound so wise and godly, it's a work of the devil. Remember, it is the Satan who declared that with the work of his own hands, trying really, really hard, he will be like the Most High. When we are doing the Christian thing and trying so very hard to be good for God, we do not look like our Father in heaven. Rather, we emulate the works of the devil, the one whose works Jesus came to loosen or break. The answer to this puzzle of sin is for us to run to Yahweh and simply be willing to let him invade any and every part of our life that has resisted his rule and his possession. If we are willing, and that's a big if, Yahweh Kana, Yahweh who is jealous, and Yahweh Makodeshkem, Yahweh who makes us holy or sets us apart, will jump into action and start the divine conquest of replacing those broken and sick parts of our being with his beautiful presence of peace. As he takes action to undo that which has dominated our lives, the various fears that are surrounded and protected by all our coping mechanisms, and as the ugliness of our sin begins to just rise to the surface, he gives us the opportunity to see it all, to have our delusions of goodness and our victim mentality be forever busted if we are willing. And if we are, then Yahweh Sidkenu, Yahweh our righteousness, will come alongside to assure us that our righteousness has always been, now is, and forevermore will be found only in him. The truth is that he never expected us to be like him. He's always just wanted us to let him be to us who he says, the Haya, or I am, so he can make us like him. It is Yahweh's job to cause us to share his nature and to make us like him. There's nothing we can do in that regard other than let him do his work, i.e., be willing, or said in a biblical language, to offer up ourselves as a living sacrifice, acceptable unto God. That is our spiritual service of worship. For only he, only Yahweh is the source of our transformation. During this long and treacherous journey, Yahweh Nisi will be our banner, our covering, our shade from the heat, the one to whom we are to run and hide. And despite the pain, the loneliness, the torment, the isolation, and the certain feeling that we have been abandoned by God, Yahweh Shema will assure us that he is there. And there is nowhere that he is not. That there is nowhere and no time that we are without his presence. Psalm 91, verse 1 through 2. Those who live in the shelter of the Most High will find rest in the shadow of Almighty. This I declare about Yahweh. He alone is my refuge, my place of safety. He is my God, and I trust him. This passage is clear that rest is found when we live in, abide in, the shelter of the Most High. As Jesus said in John 15, verses 4 through 5, you are commanded to abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot now choose to now bear fruit of itself unless it may now abide in the vine, so neither you unless you may now abide in me. I now am the vine, you are the branches. He who is now abiding in me and I in him, he now bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can now choose to now do nothing. Learning to abide, to cling to the vine is not automatic, and it's not something that happens because we said the sinner's prayer. This is a journey of faith where we learn that he is safe and that he is worthy of our trust. This reminds me of a passage in Isaiah that seems to complete this thought. Isaiah chapter 8, verse 13 through 14. It is Yahweh Sabaoth, Yahweh of heaven's armies, whom you should be caused to regard as holy. And he your fear, and he caused to be your dread. Then he shall become a sanctuary. This passage describes a profound journey, the end of which is Yahweh being our sanctuary, our place of refuge, literally our holy place, which speaks of that special dwelling place of God, the place in which only the priests of God may have access. As for us regarding God as holy, the Spirit will be the impetus to our understanding how set apart Yahweh is from our nature, how he is, and there is no one or nothing like him. The Spirit will cause us to now understand and now be believing that he alone is Adonai, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and that nothing happens in our lives that does not originate in him. And since he is agape love, all that he does in our lives is an expression of his divine love for us. You see, this is our why. This is our reason to offer him our willingness. And that is the ultimate sign of a person who fears Yahweh. And he, your fear. This is singular, and to our surprise, it's a noun and not a verb. As a noun, this fear is not something that we do. Rather, as we are caused to regarding Yahweh as holy, the natural consequence, the natural result, he will be our fear. Jesus said this in Matthew 10:28. You are commanded to not now choose to fear those who are now killing the body, but are not now having the power to kill the soul. But rather, you are commanded to now choose to be fearing him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Perhaps we can best understand it that if we are willing to let the Spirit cause us to regard Yahweh as holy, then we will no longer fear men. We will no longer fear the system of men, the world, and we will no longer fear the Satan and all his cohort of demonic entities. Rather, our soul will be so attuned to Yahweh that he alone will possess our highest respect, admiration, loyalty, and consideration. He will be our fear. Consider what he explains in Isaiah chapter 51, verse 12 through 15. I myself am he who comforts you. Who are you that you are afraid of mortal man and of a son of man who is made like grass? That you have forgotten Yahweh your maker, who stretched out the heavens and laid the foundations of the earth, that you fear continually all day long because of the fury of the oppressor, as he makes ready to destroy. And where is the rage of the oppressor? The exile will soon be set free and will not abide in the dungeon, nor will his bread be lacking. For I am Yahweh your God, who stirs up the sea so that its waves roar. Yahweh Sabaoth is his name. And he caused to be your dread. The verb translated dread is in the Hebrew hiphil, which leaves us with the notion that the Spirit of God will cause us to tremble before Yahweh, understanding that he is a conquering king, not just some passive spirit in the sky. And in his mercy, he is set on conquering our nature so that we might share his nature. You see, this is the moment when he becomes our dread, when we realize that we've got to die to live, and we've got to live to ever love with his agape love, to be a person in which he is free to express his nature. During this journey, Yahweh Yireh, Yahweh our provider, will provide everything that we need for our transformation because, you know the reason why, the source matters. The source is everything. According to 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 2 through 4, all that we are and all that we need for life and godliness comes through the true knowledge of Jesus Christ. He must be our source for all things, all the time. He is, and he wants us to let him be our sole provision for life and godliness. And while we are feeling the most vulnerable, the most insecure, the most at risk, Yahweh Majan, Yahweh who is our shield, or technically, our shield belongs to Yahweh, will provide the protection that we need and crave. Then Yahweh Rapha will start to heal our wounds as he extracts every fear so we might live without a shadow of shame, with no sin or transgression. As this occurs, Yahweh Shalom will start to spread his peace to every area of our life that we have been willing to let him conquer and control. Yes, you will know that your tent or tabernacle is peace, for you will oversee your abode and not sin. We must always remember that Jesus does not sin. He is set apart. He is holy. Therefore, when he is free to live his life in and through our bodies, we too will not sin. Let's move on. Job chapter 5, verse 25. You will know also that your descendants will be many, and your offspring as the grass of the earth. Given that Job just lost all his children, one would think that Eliphaz might be a little more sensitive bringing up this promise referencing descendants and offspring. I mean, he lost all his kids. But for Eliphaz, I guess that's just a bit too much to ask. However, there is an application of this truth that applies to our children and the generations after them who benefit when we are willing to let the Spirit of God cause us to regard Yahweh as holy. In the same way that we pass down generational sin, we also pass down the blessings which God has bestowed upon us. After all, he promises to show loving kindness to thousands to those who love him. Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 9 through 10. I, Yahweh your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children, and on the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing loving kindness to thousands to those who love me and keep my commandments. In this prophetic statement, the Spirit of God is not addressing those who have children per se. Rather, he is addressing our spiritual descendancy, the offspring that are born because of the seeds of faith that we deposit in this earth. Consider all those who have survived the treacherous journey of transformation by relying on the words and the faith of Job. His life and his belief that Yahweh is the absolute despotic Lord of all, the only one worthy, has breathed hope into a countless number of those who have and are now trusting Yahweh to be their source, their only source. Isaiah 44, verse 1 through 5. But now listen, O Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I have chosen. Thus says Yahweh, who made you and formed you from the womb, who will help you. Do not fear, O Jacob, my servant, and you, Jeshurun, whom I have chosen. For I will pour out water on the thirsty land and streams on the dry ground. I will pour out my spirit on your offspring and my blessing on your descendants, and they will spring up among the grass like poplars by streams of waters. This one will say, I am Yahweh's, and that one will call on the name of Jacob. Another will write on his hand, belonging to Yahweh, and will name Israel's name with honor. Job chapter 5, verse 26. You will come to the grave in full vigor, like the stacking of grain in its season. This was an individual prophecy that came to fruition, for Job died an old man full of days. We're not sure how old he was when all this started, but he lived an additional 140 years, had more children, and saw 4 generations of grandchildren. In a similar fashion, Moses died full of vigor, and although Moses was 120 years old when he died, his eye was not dim, nor his vigor abated. Joshua, who led the advance into the promised land, was also strong and unabated throughout his years. Even though many failed attempts to kill the Apostle John, like boiling him in a wok of hot oil, it is rumored that he lived till he was around 100 years old, and he penned the Revelation somewhere between years 90 to 100 AD. During those years, it's also said that he was still preaching the law of Christ, that we are commanded to agape, to love one another. This was John's way of exhorting us to make the treacherous journey through the transformation process, to let Christ have his divine conquests, such that the only one who is agape love is dominating and living in and through our lives. Job 5:27. Behold this. We have searched it, and so it is. Hear it, and know for yourself. All these statements in Job chapter 5, verse 19 through 27 are prophetic truths, for they can be supported by other scriptures. and are therefore undistorted truth, which is far different than the twisted word Eliphaz received from the demon telling Job that mankind cannot be just before God or pure before his maker. But as we stated at the beginning in addressing the problem with prophets, Eliphaz's intentions in bringing these truths to Job are not honorable. Eliphaz is not proposing to encourage Job in his faith, but he fundamentally just wants Job to give up any fight or complaint, admit his guilt, and repent to Yahweh. Eliphaz implies that if he truly repents, then it will all be better. In application, Eliphaz corrupts these prophetic truths with what he believes to be true about the if-then God. This will come out in an ugly way the next time Eliphaz lectures Job on his sin, claiming Job argues with worthless talk and words that are not profitable. Prophecy is beautiful and a wonderful gift from the Spirit of God. But when misused, when misapplied, when misunderstood, it can bind people with cords of legalism and religious distortions under which God never intended them to live. God revealed some amazing truths to Eliphaz, and he spoke prophetically of so many beautiful promises of which Yahweh desires us to bet our lives upon. But Eliphaz lacks wisdom and compassion when it comes to the application of these truths. When it comes to revelations from God, whether through his word or through a prophetic utterance, remember that knowledge is never enough. The wisdom of God is always needed to discern his words and meaning accurately. Knowledge knows a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom knows never to put a tomato in a fruit salad. With that, let's stop here, and we'll pick back up in Job chapter 6 as Job responds to Eliphaz. I'm glad you tuned in and have been ready to listen. To get a free download of the full written transcript with all the scripture references footnoted, please go to threshermediagroup.com. That is THRESHER mediagroup.com. This is Steve with Thresher Media Group. When you're ready to listen, tune in.